Armageddon, apocalypse, annihilation. No matter the term used, we have encountered the end of the world as we know it. 7 alternate realities have declared war on core Earth, a world that does not and will not go down without a fight. As soon as the first invading maelstrom bridges landed, our planet instantly began organizing and analyzing the logistics to help us understand and cope with the strange and unusual activity evidenced around the globe. The first days of the invasion were chaos. The overload of information streaming into various organizations from nearly every corner of the world confused and confounded governments and their institutions. Intelligence agencies initiated transparency laws to catalog and analyzing the increasing flow of data, while new alphabet organizations were established to develop local countermeasures. As countries and territories collapsed, borders were rearranged, and the United Nations struggled to delegate an authority to manage and command a global defense against the growing crisis. Very few refugees managed to make it out of the stormy perimeters that engulfed the globe, and those who bravely found their way through the nearly impassable storms returned with various accounts describing the reshaping of their homes, families, and neighbors during the warping of reality that occurred around them. Strange invaders were being described, tormenting, slaughtering, and capturing, not just those who had been transformed in the wake of the metamorphosis, but specifically those who had not succumbed to the imposing alterations. It was within these stories that the first reports of heroic resistance against the High Lord servants and their invading realities began. These scattered survivors told tales of a new breed of warrior forged in the electricity and fury of the reality-twisting storms. Whether altered into a representation of the new dimension or anchoring themselves to their home world, these new legends were becoming known as Storm Knights. As they fought off the invaders, their valor would become their most powerful weapon in core Earth's fight against the Gauntman and his lecherous alliance. Not solely because of their newly imbued enhancements and connection to reality, but more importantly, a result of the inspiration these champions give to the ordinary folk, by giving them hope and rejuvenating the possibility and energy of all those emboldened by their victories. It was not long after the stories of these famed resistance fighters began to spread that the disenfranchised of the invading multiverses began approaching the defenders of core Earth to offer aid and support against the High Lords. Representatives from nearly every invasive cosm began to come forward volunteering information and tactics to better equip these Storm Knights in their resistance and spread the news of their victories. Managing and directing the growing assembly of recruits and volunteers became a top priority in several global coalitions, and an emergency task force was appointed to oversee these evolved warriors. By the time the invasion had entered its third week, the proper motions were made, the votes were cast, and the authority was appointed for a new global security force that eventually became known as the Delphi Council. This emergency task force, established by the newly appointed United States President Jonathan Wells, has been integrated into several security agencies governed by a majority of United Nations members. The resolutions and amendments of the legislation gave the Delphi Council access to global agencies such as Interpol, as well as internal national institutions directly affected by the invasion. Further UN aid comes from member countries where the High Lords have infiltrated partial regions of their territory or are close to having an alternate reality infringe upon their borders. In the early days of the invasion, there were some leaks coming from East Asia, specifically from the Chinese Ministry of State Security and the Japanese PSIA, that indicated suspicious activity in their countries, especially regarding their recent pandemic. But these institutions grow quieter as the war progresses, as their internal ranks get suspiciously restructured. As our network of allies and contacts grows and more agencies come forward to join the ranks of the rebellion, the goal is to provide core Earth's warriors with the ability to have bases and safe houses on every front of the campaign, or even behind enemy lines where and when it can be managed. In tandem with the integration of core Earth's defensive efforts, plans were also being made to also include the many dissenters within the invading realms who had either traveled from the hostile cosms or transformed during the reality shift and proven to be an opponent of the High Lords. Shortly after the first Maelstrom Bridge of the Living Land touched ground, strangers came out of the storms, speaking our language and willing to inform any who would listen what was happening to our world. One by one, little by little, these defectors approached core Earth's inhabitants, and it became evident that organizing these mavericks into the support network for the resistance efforts would be mandatory to best combat the growing threat. It was this very necessity that took root as one of the main reasons behind the formulation of the Delphi Council. The varieties of factions that resist the High Lords are just as diverse as the realities they come from. Prominent legendary heroes such as Lady Pella Ardenay of Isle and her champion Tolwyn lead the remnant of the Army of Light against Uthorian and have been fighting his darkness for centuries. It was their ambition in cooperating with core Earth that initiated the coalition, and they offered up their services and lives to defend our world from their enemy. The Victorians from Gaia also persistently sought amicable relations with our world's authorities, and after General Wellington was removed for his corruption, Lieutenant General Reginald A.B. Huxley became the head of the operations among his people and a vital member to be added to the growing alliance. Champions known as the Mystery Men came out of the storms from the Nile Empire, who not only fight against the efforts of Dr. Mobius, but take the fight to the other realms as well. Some of these defenders might fight alone, others have partners and sidekicks, and there are even established super teams and new alliances forming that come forward to provide assistance and protection wherever and whenever needed. The most open and supportive missionaries from Tacticur have come from the Gold Sun clan on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Establishing relations with this curious clan is the closest we have come to a tribe of allies against Barak Ka and his forces. Resistant cells from disconnected cyborgs of the Godnet, who were embracing their freedom from the hive mind, established networks of infiltration, and with support from the Delphi Council, we began giving aid in building a firewall against the cyber papacy's brainwashing. Liberated slaves of the race were also taking advantage of Core Earth's lower technological paradigm to disconnect from their captivity and free themselves from their slave collars and take up arms against their tormentors. These various and scattered groups needed organization and support, and the Delphi Council was just the organization to help them achieve the much-needed logistical management to survive their unique battlefronts. The Council's intelligence gathering has provided each of you with a rundown of the various cosms and realms at play in this campaign, and the information provided should give you an idea of what sort of game is being played here and what you are a part of. Now it is time for you as a Storm Knight to learn the ways of reality, the structure of realms, and the variables both obvious and subtle that will help you navigate your way through the various dimensions that you will be traveling through. For whatever reason, the Infiniverse has chosen you to be one of its heroes, a defender of reality and an opponent of the High Lords and the corruptive darkness devices. You have been granted an assortment of unique powers, knowledge, and abilities, and you have chosen to use these benefits to root out these invaders and expunge them from Core Earth, perhaps even going further and assisting our allies in saving their own worlds as well. In joining the Delphi Council, it will be our duty to provide you with the tools you need to get this job done. Welcome to the Possibility Wars. It has been said that there is a legend of an ultimate conqueror who can harvest enough possibilities to merge their consciousness with a darkness device and ascend into a being of infinity comparable to the first deities of the Infiniverse, such as the Nameless One. The High Lords refer to this title as the Torg, and it is doubtful that anyone truly understands the meaning of the word, not even the Reality Raiders themselves. This mystery does not prevent these conquerors from attempting to achieve this position, though, nor continuing to feed their ancient machine's possibility energy in the pursuit that one of them obtains the power over all realities. The High Lords have actually made the tactical error of hubris in choosing to raid Core Earth, for our reality has a tendency to influence and manipulate the other realms through its world laws, and this infiltration into their worlds is the bane of these dark conquerors. To fight back against the High Lords is to use reality itself as your weapon, and Storm Knights are the warriors that wield it. Other than Stormers, only Storm Knights can tap into their possibilities to bend reality to their desired outcome, and it is possibilities that dictate what outcome prevails when two realities collide. Stormers are the antithesis of what a Storm Knight represents. These possibility-rated antagonists, who can be just as powerful as Storm Knights, are part of the chaos produced by the Reality Storm's changing laws as the people of Core Earth turned into a variety of threats and obstacles that benefited the High Lord's hold over the region. These Stormers also come from the ranks of the High Lord's armies, forged through centuries of invasions. These agents and lieutenants of the High Lords use their mastery over reality to protect and preserve the realm and their masters. This assortment of adversaries represents the most immediate threat to a Storm Knight, as it is these foes that you will most commonly face. Having power and knowledge over reality is a required skill to have in order to internally bend the reality within and around oneself, as well as defend against any outside alterations to it. Using a possibility is the act of choosing to alter or enhance an outcome currently being initiated. If one wills it, one can predict the outcome of an action and have reality produce the results. Core Earth's quantum mechanics compares this to the Schrödinger principle, and a Storm Knight or Stormer are the ones that decide which box is open and whether the cat is alive or dead. Spending a possibility opens that box. When two reality-rated individuals seek opposing outcomes, it is usually the one with more possibilities and a greater mastery of reality that decides the course of events. This is why groups, units, and teams of Storm Knights are necessary, as fighting these opponents alone can be suicide or worse. The larger the group of Storm Knights, the more of a connection they have to consequence, and if they play their cards right, they can often determine each other's destiny as well as their own. Manipulating reality is easiest when within one's own reality, doing what that reality allows. The more the forces around you are aligned with who you are and what you are doing, the simpler it is to just choose a possibility without actually needing to deplete one to obtain the desired outcome. It is going beyond what your natural or surrounding paradigms allow, where manipulating reality and spending possibilities come into effect, and this is the Storm Knight's power. Bending axioms and world laws is known as contradicting, and whether one is violating the precedents of their core reality, contrary to the environment they are in, bending dictates of an opposing area, or contending with an enemy Stormer's paradigms, they run the risk of losing touch to their natural reality. As long as a Storm Knight has a thread that attaches them to their home dimension, they can violate whatever precepts they desire and can do things that defy reality. Yes, you can shoot dinosaurs with a laser cannon, but you must be willing to risk everything to have the opportunity. One must be careful that they maintain a constant connection to their home reality, otherwise disconnection can occur. A consequence with devastating repercussions if one does not regain their attachment to their dimension. Contradicting creates a ripple in reality that resonates that what you are doing is contrary to the established order, and so the reality pushes back to prevent the contradiction from occurring. Disconnection happens whenever the reality you are in cuts your thread to your home reality to prevent you from repeating any further attempts. These random events are a matter of luck, and sometimes it's just a toss of the dice that can decide your fate. When these hiccups occur, bad things happen, and usually the Storm Knight fails at their task. Whether a malfunction, miscalculation, or even a stutter in thought, result is disastrous as the Storm Knight can no longer contradict until they re-establish their link to their reality. Reconnection becomes a priority for a Storm Knight once they disconnect. Losing the link to the home cosm puts the individual at risk of turning into a denizen of the realm they are currently occupying and becoming one of the transformed. Transformation drains possibility energy, and around 1/3 of ordinary inhabitants die in one manner or another in the process. Those that have survived the change and adapted to the new environment are referred to as Ords, and they have potential to regain more possibilities in their struggle to adapt to their new reality. It is these unlucky survivors that get used by the High Lords to generate and feed the energies to their darkness devices. Instead of using their possibilities to further their destinies, these Ords get their fates slowly eroded away as their choices become limited and constricting through their lack of options. As their life force is drained, their possibilities go wherever the darkness device decides rather than how they choose, until they either die or somehow manage to break free of their enslaved lives. The greater the change in reality, the more possibilities required to achieve it, which is why darkness devices harvest these energies. Taking over another dimension is expensive and requires a reasonable profit in order for it to be considered desirable to a High Lord. It takes decades, if not centuries of planning for bountiful reaping, and preparations are made well in advance of any calculated incursion. Dim threads, dimensional gateways created by darkness devices, teleport infiltrators to plant Stelae in the target cosm that act as an anchor for containment to bind, support, and control an area. Stelae also act as a buffer against the invaded reality's pushback to revert the captured region back to its original parameters. Stelae are what sets the border of a realm to confine the possibilities inside so they can be harvested and used by a darkness device, High Lord, or one of their minions. Every realm has their own unique style of these keystones, reflective of their cosm's origins, and removing Stelae outposts are a priority for the Delphi Council, but a dangerous and precise operation to initiate. Stelae are usually hidden and are heavily guarded and directly linked to a darkness device. Scouting for and finding Stelae outside of an invading realm is important. These stations remain dormant until the darkness device is ready to expand its territory and are often secretly guarded. Should any infernal machine detect tampering with, or even something approaching it, dim threads will summon whatever forces are necessary to protect these important installations. The Delphi Council maintains and updates maps of suspected Stelae locations, but these are only accurate to within a few kilometers. Getting any closer requires investigation, exploration, and simple trial and error. The most crucial aspect of these delicate missions, though, are the effects of Stelae removal on the Ords of the zone. Once a Stelae is uprooted, Core Earth's reality floods back into the previously altered zone in an attempt to reset the environment back to Core Earth paradigms. Restoration back to their original reality can be deadly for an Ord, and Storm Knights need to be wary that they do not kill the innocents they are trying to save. When an Ord transforms, they are robbed of their possibility and are reformed depleted. Storm Knights regain their energy fast enough to survive further transformations, but Ords are not so lucky. Storm Knights can restore some of this energy to Ords by performing great and inspiring acts. Glory is more than just one of Core Earth's laws, but the beacon of hope that empowers any Ord within range of an epic event occurring to revert back to their previous reality. Whenever the Storm Knight succeeds in a magnificent display of glory, ambient energy from the act resonates through the air for every disconnected Ord in the zone to be imbued with that can potentially help them to revert back to their home cosm. These transformed Ords have a chance of surviving another transformation, and new transformations from the invading reality are prevented for a time. These effects last for an entire month from the moment the glorious event occurred, and it is during this window that the Delphi Council seeks to unearth Stelae and flood the area with Core Earth's resurgence into the region to prevent the High Lords from stealing any more energy. Stories are the Delphi Council's most potent weapon, and it is by spreading the tales of your deeds that we will restore the possibilities to this land and its people. Once a maelstrom bridge is dropped, the reality storms explode out from the portal, rushing to the outermost edges where Stelae have been secured, attempting to transform everything in its path as it washes across the environment. Because Storm Knights and Stormers have the ability to maintain a connection to their home reality while in another dimension, only they can cross the barriers between worlds intact without succumbing to instantaneous transformation. These storms are violent and chaotic environments where reality is constantly in flux, and traversing these tempests can be psychologically grueling as well as physically exhausting. Each realm's reality storms are unique and are usually relative to the cosm they originate from. The most natural in appearance are core Earth squalls, more reminiscent of a tornado or a hurricane, and are usually found around hardpoints. Living land torrents have been known to have thick droplets of fresh water that can be blinding in their intensity or so humid that one cannot see their hand in front of their face. Isles deluges can have mystifying effects as their air seems to sparkle with glitter, or on occasion rain has been known to pour from the ground below to the sky above. The cyber papacy has downpours that are nearly perfect in their design, with soft warm rain adorned with rainbows as lightning seems to electrify and power everything it touches. The harsh conditions of Tharkle wreak havoc wherever they are located and are polluted with shrapnel and fragments from the devastated Maelstrom Bridge. Shards of metal impact and impale from all directions as the flurry of radioactive winds cut the air. Nile Empire's dry conditions do not contain much humidity, so sandstorms sweep the region and can cause blackouts for miles. The force of some of these cyclones have been known to tear flesh from one's face as they rip through an area, leaving nothing but desert when they subside. The darkest and blackest of the reality storms are those within Orosh, as the clouds and smog snuff out as much light as possible, creating a disorientating strobe effect whenever lightning strikes. The slimy, dirty water whips mud and stench into the air as an individual becomes drenched in filth and burdened with muck. No matter the type of reality storm one encounters, they are often easier to enter than they are to leave, as the invading reality seeks to contain those trapped inside. Trying to escape can become a confusing ordeal as landmarks seem to shift and horizons become obscured. It is not hard to become lost, as one often finds themselves going in circles or emerging through the storm wall only to be right back in the realm they were trying to exit. Traversing these terrains requires sharp thinking, and any assistance in navigation is recommended when entering or leaving a realm's perimeter or a hardpoint core. Probably one of the greatest advantages of core Earth Storm Knights are the Realm Runners, who are known as Stormcallers. Other than Ravagons, they are the only known reality-rated individuals who can summon a reality storm on another opponent and impose their reality upon another. The two combatants become isolated as they are locked in conflict as the two realities collide, invoking a cataclysmic upheaval. This gale will not subside until one reality overcomes the other and either knocks a contender unconscious, depletes their possibilities, or disconnects them from their home cosm. Winning this contest gives the victor the ability to contradict, while their opponent risks defeat or even transformation. This ability to tap into the power of the reality storm has given Core Earth an edge over the stormers of other realms, as Core Earth's world laws inspire these warriors to fight reality with reality. Within a realm, there are 3 types of zones that can be combined within the triangular areas of a Stelae's network structure, and knowing the terrain you are fighting in can be a matter of life over death. Reality works slightly different while in the confines of these areas, and these zones can fluctuate and shift depending on how and where the possibility energy within is being directed. Pure zones are the strongest of the High Lord's Cosm, as they accept no other principles other than those of the invading reality. Other realities are suppressed the most here, and contradicting the parameters and laws of these domains is difficult and risky for Storm Knights. If one is unfortunate enough to disconnect within a pure zone, reconnection to their home reality becomes extremely difficult. Lords cannot, under any circumstances, create a contradiction in these areas, as the anchored reality has taken over completely in a purified territory. These regions are most common around Maelstrom bridges, where the invading reality wields the most power and possibilities are drained the quickest. Dominant zones are regions where the invading reality has the strongest influence but has not completely overtaken the domain. Contradictions are less risky, as Storm Knights can remain tethered to their home dimension here, and if disconnection happens, they reconnect to their home cosm much easier in a dominant zone than within a pure one. Even Ords can contradict the intruding reality and remain bound to their own parameters, but need to return to their own reality if they do happen to disconnect. These regions typically surround a pure zone core, protecting it from the invaded reality's efforts to reject it. For the most part, Core Earth itself is only categorized as a majority dominant zone, as its reality is more forgiving to alien concepts and objects. It is this openness and willingness to accept others that gives Core Earth an edge by assimilating diversity into our culture and incorporating it so that we can all share it equally. Mixed zones are where two realities collide and both worlds compete for dominance. Anything permitted within either reality is acceptable without causing a contradiction in these zones, and reconnection is fairly easy for Storm Knights within these regions. In these chaotic environments, the set of rules for each dimension apply, and reality storms in these areas are the most intense and fierce out of any other zone as the two realities battle for dominance. Only two separate realities can compete in this manner, and any attempts by a third to manifest are quickly snuffed out by the contention of the other two. Mixed zones are the front lines for Storm Knights, and it is on this terrain that the war will most often be fought. It is within these regions that Core Earth's world laws bleed into the invading realities, inspiring underdogs with hope to obtain glory. It is in mixed zones that the High Lords tend to focus their energies on, as possibilities drain the slowest here, and it takes a vast amount of possibilities to flip these zones to dominant, so that infiltration can be expanded and the harvest is more bountiful. The largest and most dangerous mixed zones are the treacherous blasted lands that stretch across northern Russia between Core Earth and Tharkhold, and the surreal and chaotic English Channel where Isle and Cyber Papacy conflict. The waters between Britain and the rest of Europe are unpredictable and incomprehensible as cyber dragons and techno-Vikings flash with physically manifested AIs casting spells or heretical gods become corporeal beings. Traveling through or above these chaotic waters are not recommended as the risk is great and any rescue missions for lost or injured personnel would be ridiculous to attempt. The blasted lands are where the Delphi Council has an advantage. The mixing of core Earth dictates keeps the possibilities of its world laws alive, and this radiated wasteland is in desperate need of hope, underdogs, and glory. Core Earth survivors and those of the race disconnected from Tharkold have been inspired to fight the techno-demons fiercely as they take advantage of the planet's largest mix zone. Hardpoints are objects that have significance and importance to a cosm that radiate a realm's reality and a particular radius around it dependent on the power of the hardpoint. They can be almost anything, but are usually reliant on how meaningful and relative they are to its core principles. Something revered locally will only have a small effect on the environment, while something admired by a nation, or even globally, can extend for kilometers. Hardpoints in any alien reality gradually lose the possibility energy that sustains them, eventually being sucked dry by the High Lord Stelae network. When they run out of possibility energy, the hardpoint goes inert and can only be replenished through belief and attachment towards the object. High Lords selectively target these locations over heavily populated regions as those fighting to preserve a hardpoint are conduits for possibility energy. These stable environments have a pure zone internal core with a dominant zone middle layer that is further extended by a mixed zone outer ring. Any cosm has the ability to produce a hardpoint, but they are costly to create and are usually manufactured naturally, as it is preferable to drain possibilities out of a hardpoint than to invest the energy to create one. There are several core Earth hardpoints dotting the interiors of each realm, and these sanctuaries can provide a refuge from the chaos of the invading realities by providing a haven from their impositions or a means for dissidents to disconnect from their imprisonments. There are two cosms that have managed to infiltrate core Earth that have become a delicate matter for the Delphi Council, as they have not proven themselves to be an immediate threat, and these are the realms of the Cyber Papacy and whatever is behind the Pan-Pacific Partnership. The Cyber Church has managed to run a propaganda campaign so convincing that open resistance is frowned upon, as any retaliation towards the Cyber Pope's authority could have international repercussions that create another hostile war front that would certainly thin the Council's much-needed resources. Despite Jean Malraux's claims of peace, there is still a Maelstrom Bridge and Stelae in the region, and it is only a matter of time before the ruse will be obvious and he will be revealed for the hostile threat he really is. Similar conditions are relevant along the East Asian front as well, and any unsanctioned investigations in the region are labeled as treasonous, and the crime of espionage carries a death sentence in the region. The narrative is even more controlled where Kanawa has influence, keeping one step ahead of the Council's attempts to uncover the truth, citing any interference as a power grab or counterproductive towards fighting the contagion. The Council knows that only incontrivable evidence of invasion will drive a wedge between the corporations, the cooperating governments, and the population. Perhaps as a result of core Earth's world laws, wherein our very reality is the underdog, our dimension was inspired with an axiom spike that raised our cosm's ability to counter the invasion that struck our planet. Weeks before the invasion, reports of magical resurgences, spiritual awakenings, and psionic activity began rippling throughout the globe. Arts that were once thought lost suddenly regained some potency, and calls to deities began to receive an answer. Although these abilities managed to receive a slight boost to their effectiveness, an advantage not to be taken lightly, it was the potency of psionics that surged into our society that became an important and useful tool in our fight against the High Lords. The unanticipated psionic awakening that charged core Earth resonated throughout all the realms, and the various societies were imbued with psychic powers relative to their social axiom rating. Although some cosms have had variations of these abilities previously, realms such as Tharkold and the Cyber Papacy are dealing with threats they had once thought eliminated. The telepathic communication between the race and the Russians were the main source of intelligence in their attempts to retaliate against the techno-demons. Mentalists from nearly every realm have come forward to join our ranks, and we've begun integrating them into the various departments of the Council. It was this surge of extrasensory perception and projection that was the inspiration for the newly formed resistance. And like the Greek oracles at Delphi, clairvoyants, telepaths, and precogs began to see the multitude of possibilities before us. It is up to you Storm Knights to decide which one of these destinies we end up in. As you can see from the information provided, the Delphi Council has been firmly established to supply you and other Storm Knights that have allied themselves with us the resources and intelligence you will need to conduct whatever assignments and missions you choose. The Delphi Council has agents everywhere, and when word of any High Lord's plans reaches them, they request Storm Knight assistance to disrupt them. Although the Council does what it can in the form of intelligence gathering, it is boots on the ground that requires a complete investigation, and for that role, Storm Knights are necessary to infiltrate enemy ground. Reconnaissance is a valuable role for Storm Knights, as they have the ability to penetrate enemy lines, allowing realm runners to supply, protect, and extract refugees, especially those who congregate behind enemy lines and help maintain various hardpoints. Protecting the innocent is a priority for the Delphi Council, and reverting people back to their natural reality prevents High Lords from growing in power. Those that resist transformation become targets of the High Lords and their minions, as their defiance can inspire others to contend with reality as well. Rescuing and saving these individuals is vital to the war effort, as these vessels have the potential to gain and store possibilities. The Council has access to various satellites that still function above the affected zones, as well as their monitoring capabilities. This gives the Council access to orbital analysis to monitor troop movements and suspicious activity wherever they can penetrate. Our connections can acquire whatever transportation is needed from a horse, a jeep, or an armored truck, or in some cases even a tank. When needed, we can supply air support as well, such as C-130 Hercules or perhaps a C-5 Galaxy to move portable outposts, squads of support teams, or useful vehicles if the situation arises. The Delphi Council is willing to provide all types of weapons, survival gear, and armor, as well as a variety of items and artifacts collected from other realms. The Council has acquired a trove of various treasures that include enchanted objects, spell ingredients, weird science gadgets, occult books, cybernetic enhancements, and even religious tombs or blessed iconography from an assortment of faiths. If the occasion permits, the Council can even provide powerful talismans and eternity shards that draw and store possibilities that can be tapped into and used by the wielder. These objects often possess special unique powers relative to the item's meaning, influence, and reality. These much sought-after relics can be among the most powerful items in the cosmos, and High Lords waste no effort in collecting and draining these dangerous fragments and mementos. Talismans are usually temporary and fleeting keepsakes, and often fade in significance, while eternity shards are generally timeless items that remain in popular memory and are culturally significant. Locating and retrieving these artifacts are a primary concern for Storm Knights, and keeping them out of the hands of the High Lords is a top priority for the Council. Collected among the staff of the Delphi Council are the various teachers and trainers from the assorted realms who have volunteered to assist Storm Knights in furthering whatever study or school they desire. It is at home base where Storm Knights educate themselves by taking the time to spend their experience with a willing instructor. Having a healthy support base is a necessity for Storm Knights, as the energy invested in the operation of it refreshes the possibilities of Storm Knights, allowing them to recharge and maximize their abilities for their next assignment. And I am one of these delegates. I am Quinn Sebastian, your liaison to the Delphi Council, and I have recruited you to join with the United Nations officially sanctioned global security force so you can spread tales of heroism and glory and obtain whatever resources and information you need to fight back against the High Lords and prevent them from becoming the Torg.